I never imagined the hand that hit me would belong to someone sleeping under my roof. I want you to understand something before I tell you this story. I am not a woman who turns family away. It is not in my nature. When people I love are struggling, I open my hands before they finish asking. That is who I am. That is who I have always been. And for a long time, I believed that generosity would be returned with at least basic respect. I was wrong about that. My sister-in-law Diane came to us in February. She had ended a difficult relationship and had nowhere stable to go. No savings, no immediate plan, just a suitcase, a broken heart, and her brother's phone number. My husband Kevin called me from the driveway before he brought her inside. He asked me if it was okay. I said yes without hesitation. We had a spare room. It had its own bathroom. I cleared it out, put fresh linen on the bed, bought extra groceries, and made her feel as welcome as I knew how. I told her she could stay as long as she needed while she got back on her feet. That was 11 months before she slapped me. The first few months were manageable. Diane was quiet, mostly kept to herself, and seemed genuinely grateful. She helped occasionally around the house, and we had decent enough conversations over dinner. I told myself this was going well. I told myself I had done the right thing. But somewhere around month 4, something shifted. She became comfortable in a way that started to feel like ownership. She rearranged things in my kitchen without asking. She had friends over late on weekday nights. She made comments about how I cooked, how I decorated, how I organized my own home, always lightly, always with a small smile, always in a tone that made me feel like questioning it would make me the unreasonable one. I spoke to Kevin about it twice. He listened patiently both times and said he would talk to her. Things would improve briefly and then slide back. I kept the peace because that is what I had always done. I kept the peace because she was his sister and she had nowhere else to go, and I believed, genuinely believed, that my generosity would eventually be met with some basic level of respect. The day it happened started like any other. I had returned home from work, tired and carrying groceries. I walked into the kitchen to find Diane on the phone, leaning against my counter, having rearranged my dish rack again for the 3rd time that week. I put the bags down and asked her, calmly, I was completely calm, if she could please leave the kitchen the way I had organized it. She turned and looked at me. What followed was an argument that had been building for 11 months. She told me I was controlling. She told me I made her feel unwelcome. She told me that Kevin had done fine before he married me, and that the house felt different since I entered the picture. Every sentence was another piece of something she had been storing for a long time and had finally decided to unpack directly into my face. I told her she needed to lower her voice. I told her that I had opened my home to her and I deserved basic respect in return. She stepped closer, and then she slapped me. Open palm across my left cheek, hard enough that the sound filled the kitchen and left a warmth spreading across my face that I could feel all the way into my jaw. For a moment, neither of us moved. I pressed my hand against my cheek and looked at her. She looked back at me with an expression that was equal parts shock at herself and defiance, like she was waiting to see what I would do, like she was daring me to react. I did not scream. I did not hit back. I turned around, walked to our bedroom, and sat on the edge of the bed. Kevin was home within the hour. I do not know what he saw when he walked into the kitchen first, whether Diane said something, whether she said nothing, but he came straight to our bedroom. He looked at my face. He sat beside me and asked me quietly what happened. I told him everything, the slap, the argument, the 11 months of smaller things I had never fully said out loud before. I said all of it that evening, clearly and without tears, because I was past tears. I was in that particular stillness that comes after something crosses a line that cannot be uncrossed. Kevin sat beside me without interrupting. When he finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked out of the room. I heard his voice in the hallway, low, firm, nothing like the gentle tone he usually used with his sister. I heard Diane's voice rise, then fall, then go silent. Then I heard the unmistakable sounds of drawers and a suitcase. Within 2 hours, she was gone. Kevin came back to our room and sat beside me. He took my hand and said, "No one raises their hand to my wife in her own home. I do not care who it is." I looked at him for a long time, because those words mattered. Not because they were romantic, but because for 11 months I had needed him to choose clearly and consistently, and it had taken a slap for that clarity to arrive. Diane called 3 times that week. Kevin answered once. The conversation was short. She has not been back since. My kitchen is organized exactly the way I like it now. The house is quiet in a way it hadn't been for almost a year, and my husband, who took too long to see what was happening but chose correctly when it mattered most, has spent every day since making sure I never question where his loyalty lives. Some lessons cost too much to learn slowly. I just wish it hadn't taken the sound of a hand across my face to teach the right person the right thing. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing to this channel. Every subscriber helps me share more meaningful stories like this. Thank you so much for being here.